when that gentleman realized I was in his class, that was in P4, was doing very well in English, and I would get 80s to 100. The mathematics was not in the picture. So, third term of that year, I've lost count of those years, really, specific years where I was in which class. But the third term, something happened, and I've never forgotten. I've just forgiven the gentleman because he's now the late. In third term, he used to have, he used to stay in the staff quarters, and he had some cows later around. So after our English exam in third term, the following week we went back for our results, and when he came, he brought back the scripts. 3 of our scripts were missing, my colleagues and me. Then he gave us a story that his cows actually chewed the top papers.
After all other students getting their papers?
Yes, because he said we don't have ours. Then he told us mine had been chewed by his cows. And now, after he had left, I asked the daughter. The daughter was our classmate. I said, what happened? He said, no, my dad is lying. Nothing like that happened. He just hid your papers somewhere. I saw him with your papers. And I'd got 100 in that paper. English paper. English was my best subject up to P4. Then something bad happened. Bad to me. He said, now those people whose papers were lost, we are going to set for you another test. And I remember he failed that test, and I've never forgiven myself and the gentleman.
How many did you get?
33%. And that question, he drew a table I've never forgotten, with words which do not change. Present, past, and past participle. Do you know the things in it?
Yes,
and he gave us things like put. And we were saying puttedness. So we failed completely. I almost failed to join P4, P5.
Why do you think he had to do something like that?
No, my father was the chairman of the management committee, I'm sorry to say that. And I think he was the one always at his, always looking for
so him,
wanting to discipline him. Why was he always walking around drunk in a Muslim school, you know, things like that. So I think he transferred his anger to me. I got to know that much later when I was grown up. Now, then I went to P5.
How did that affect you? The 38, 32?
33.
33. How did it affect you?
Badly. I didn't even want to show my report to my people. I was always the best in the class. At that time, I don't know, I was the 15th or 16th.
Because of that 9?
Yes, that 9. Then I went to P4, P5. Then mathematics began.
In P5?
Yes.
What has it been doing the other classes?
I was not very good.
You were focusing at English?
English. I told you why. I wanted to speak English.
Yeah.
Those neighbors' children were always walking around, bossing us around, talking in English, abusing us. So I wanted to learn English. So I was good at English up to P4 until that event occurred. So in P5, the headmaster was our mathematics teacher. One day.
The same school?
Yes, one day he came with a basket of huge succulent oranges to teach us. Towards lunchtime, we were hungry. Remember, those days we would not go to school with money. There was no money. There was no school canteen. Those things are recent. So now, when we saw those oranges, we had never seen such big and appetizing oranges. So I decided that whatever happens, I would follow the headmaster at the end of the lesson.
At least a big one.
But he was coming to teach us fractions. And he got a knife, and he got one of those oranges, and he cut it into a half, and exposed them. They were very yellow. Imagine what we were feeling. And he showed us. Yes, showed us. This one is called a half. This one is called a half. Then he got that a half and he cut it again. And he said, now, a half of this a half is called a quarter. Then he cut it again, an eighth. He did the same to this, and again we combine. And he would count for us. How many are these? There are 8. Each one is called an eighth. How many are these? 4. And each one is called a quarter. At the end of the lesson, he cut the oranges and he gave each one of us a piece. That was the beginning of my mathematics story.
So oranges played a big role.
Exactly. I never looked back.
That means anyone there who has been groomed by Mr. Sairo, one way of appreciating him, bring an orange.
Yes. So P6. Best in mathematics. I went to P7. Now P7, I was young. Compared to the guys who were there, of course, because I started school late also. But I was young. There were grandparents in that. Long ago, actually, repeating P7 was very normal. So we would find people who had repeated 2 to 3 times.
3 years of experience.
Yes, and they were there. And they were not embarrassed about repeating classes. So we went in. I was a young man, and some of them knew me. I had taken a prize in being the best student in P6, first term. And in second term, when they elected prefects, I was made the timekeeper. I was the timekeeper. That's a big post. Because people would come from classes to beg me to go and ring the bell out. We had a bell on a tree hanging. You know those rims of the rims of these lorries, those metal rims. They would tie it with the chain up there, then you would ring from here with a gong. And I was the man. It was at the center of the school, was L-shaped like this, and the bell was here. So when I was going to ring the bell, all classes saw me. I would first of all pose around for effect. And then they would say, please ring the bell. Then I would ring, and the fellows would jump out of the class. I enjoyed that one. It was my first responsibility in school. I enjoyed it. So I was very popular in that way.
Were you not affected with that and your studies?
No, I was still innocent. Very, very innocent. I was still focused on studies. And I did well, and we went to P7. Those guys we met there said, you have come here, you think you have been getting prizes, we shall see you.
So they were awarding you on
the repeaters. No, in class, those big guys we found. Very, very big guys. Guys you would find in S6 these days, were in P7 those years. So, the first year, by the way, I got a first grade. Our time, they were not aggregates. Aggregates are very recent. Our times, they were totals. And we used to do 3 papers. One was math, English, then general paper. General paper started with us. General paper had science in it, had social studies, had what else is there?
CRI?
And yes, and religious education. Yes. So the pass mark that year was 215. I'd put Navumari as my first choice. And I got a first grade, imaginary 215. So Navumari could not take me. My parents told me I had to go to some other school, but I refused.
So by that time you only wanted one school. That was your dream.
Yes,
after
I wanted
primary.
to be in Navumari. Then I told my parents I will repeat, I want to get a higher mark. And I passed. And very few of us got first grade, but I chose to repeat P7.
That means if we can relate your grading to ours, you got 12 points. 12 aggregates. That is a line of first grade.
Yes, it was 12 aggregates in these days. I refused to go. I resat. So I went back. Because I told you repeating was normal. So I went back and repeated. The same school, same class. And I passed very highly. I got 286 points out of 300. That is an average of what when you divide by 3. Almost 88. So, but something happened along the way. I changed my mind about the money. I now wanted
when
to
you
go.
Repeated.
Yes, I wanted to go somewhere. And you see, those days, the school system was organized, by the way. They used to send application forms up to the primary schools. In those schools, by the way, we used to write on tablets. Even in the villages, tablets. They are small blackboards, and we would use chalk. The school system was still intact. So I passed highly, but when they brought the forms, we were reading through the schools. One school's name hit me, Sebei College, take a rest. I thought that was powerful.
The name
we
sounded
didn't know, yes, we didn't
energy.
know. It's these days when you people have those, you have careers, masters, what have you. Don't get go no. Class teacher and book. Finish. So I put my first choice. I put Sebei College as my first choice.
Because of the name.
It's a school up. I don't know whether you people know Sebei. Sebei is very high up on the mountain mountain.
Still the same side of the east.
Yes, it is. From Bali you go towards Karamoja as if then you climb the mountain where those Cheptegeis come from. Up. It's a very cold place, so almost always winter. But that's where I was for S1 and S2. And my mathematics flourished. Because I remember in my S2, every year, they used to give a prize for the best. Our headmaster was interested in mathematics. And he was giving a prize to the overall winner in the class, the best student in math.
So now you have joined secondary.
Yes, in S1 I got that prize. I think it was a small book, it's a science book. Got lost, but I still have the dictionary I got in S2. And something happened in that time. There was a takeover. 1979, there was a takeover when Amin was overthrown. A few days to the overthrow, we went on strike. As a school, not me, but as a school. And what was the reason? Our head boy had been called to the office and he had been caned.
Were you involved in a strike?
No, I was still very young.
But since senior is the stubbornest.
Yes, we were very stubborn. We followed the guys around, but we were not very effective, just making noise. But I remember that time. Actually, what happened? We went and when our head boy came back, weeping, he was crying. He said what had happened. When we inquired, we were told he had been caned in the staff room because of some indiscipline. He was a very graceful guy. He was a guy called Amako. I've never forgotten that name. He was from Arua. Amako, I don't know whether he's still alive. We loved him. He was so tall, very athletic, and he had a good smile. He was so handsome. We just loved the guy. So when we were told he had been beaten, we went mad. And it was coming to evening, so some kids went up to the staff quarters in the hills. They caused the mayhem.
Were you in this school?
It was a boarding school. So it was a boarding school. Those days there were very few day schools. Very few. Most schools were boarding, apart from a few schools in towns. So then the takeover, I think, happened 1 or 2 days later, and army men were running back to their places. When those people from there came up to the school and they were told the kids have gone on strike and they have destroyed property, they almost killed the headmaster's wife, things like that. They came and wanted to surround the school. They wanted to cane us. Actually, a few of our colleagues were arrested and taken to police. And then they came back to look for the rest of us. We took off. We walked on foot from Sebei up to Mbari. That is a distance of about over 100 kilometers.
So were you walking individually?
We were 3 of us. We walked from Sebei up to very early morning. We rolled down the hills and we touched down on the road coming from Moroto at a place called Bunamti.
Where exactly were you heading?
Did
you even know the destination?
No, the other 2 guys, their parents, their homes were nearby compared to mine. So we stayed in a place called Pogo. There's a place called Pogo. After Sironko, you have heard of Sironko.
Yes.
There's a place called Impogo. So those guys housed me for 3 days because the following day our legs were swollen. So I nursed my injuries. Then I walked to my mother's side. My grandparents from my mother's side are in a place called Nakaoke, not very far away from there. So that's where my mother was born. So I walked up to that place, and the trouble now, I sat, that whole year I sat at home.
That was in Seniato?
Yes. I could not go to any school. I tried to go to Navumari, and they had advertised the interviews. When I went there, their first thing was to ask me which school I'd been to. The schools in the East had an association because some of the big schools used to steal, like it happens, the bright students from the other schools. So they made some resolutions that this should not go on. So but they did not know that I was coming from Sebei College. So they gave us an interview. It was English and math.
The 3 of you?
No, the other guys, I've never seen them again. I've never. Because when I came to Kampala, when I go back home to Palisa district, and those guys, one of them is actually Museveni's pilot. We have contacts, we just talk. We have never seen each other physically.
From that time?
So, but now that I'm remembering, I think I should look for them. So, I went to Naumari for interviews. And I imagined the best with a total of 186 out of 200. So, the DOS, they were not called DOSes, they were deputies. The deputy called me and said, "You man, are you a repeater or are you just bright?" I said, "No, I'm not a repeater." They gave us a test in English and math. I said, "No,
Your areas
the way you have performed this way, we cannot just take you. You have to go back to your former school for a recommendation." And already our names were in bad books because we had gone on. So that mission ended there. So I had to wait for the next year when I was supposed to be in F3. And
you repeat S2?
I didn't repeat. I went direct to S3. In a school in Tororo called Manjas High School. Actually, if you look for me on Facebook, that is the school that appears on my profile.
By that time there was no Facebook, I think.
And now I'm saying nowadays, if you go to my profile, Facebook is recent. So I went to Manjas High School. Good enough, there was a teacher who came from our side of the country, and he helped my dad to fix me. And I went into F3 direct. So I did one term in S2, but I went to F3. But something happened when I was at home,
In that period,
that period from April up to the end of the year, I was always reading. My sister who had been to Nagumali, I got her books and I was reading through mathematics. And I got to sets and I was reading through her sets and I was following. All the time I was
reading. You were
reading.
a teacher of yourself.
Yes, I thought to myself that, yeah. What surprised me when I reached university, we were taught a law, which I discovered in that time when I was. But I discovered.
I think we shall reach that when we reach university.
I discovered the Morgan's laws. They are called the Morgan's laws. We use them in probability. And I was just shading the wanted regions. I noticed that when you write sets this way and you shade, and when you write them in another way and you shade, you get the same pattern. Said, so this thing is equal to this. And I discovered those two, they are essentially two laws of the Morgan's laws.
That was in senior 2, when you're not at school?
Yes, when I was not at school, I discovered that one. When I reached the university and they called them the Morgan's laws, I just left. I discovered them in S2. So I went to Manjas High School. I'm talking now about my mathematics journey now was started.
We are still in senior 3 now.
A3. So I went to A3 and the school was good. That school was good. They had very good teachers compared to Sebe. Very good teachers. And then I was interested in their mathematics club. They had a math club. But it was mainly infested with only S6s. S5s.
The big people in school.
Calculating cot, cosec, what have you, things we have never known. But I was still interested. Yes, I was the only O-level person in the math club. I didn't want to imagine that somebody knew more mathematics than I did. But I didn't know the other one was a different level. So when I went into their classes, they were calculating advanced mathematics. But I kept going back. One day they made a mistake. And they set a small number on logs. I went and logs is one of my best topics. I went and split it for them. I even set for them a very complicated number they didn't solve.
A senior 3 student setting for senior 6s.
And then I told them, you come the other side, let me show you. I split the number, they clapped. At the end of the year, when they were electing executives, I was made vice chairperson.
You saw that coming.
Yes, I was made vice chairperson. So we went on. But something happened in our S4. The story I know, I think you people know. I tell people all the time. In S4, I had I had two guys, very close friends of mine. And we had a petty name. We used to call ourselves the Three Musketeers. We were not easy. So one evening, one of those boys had gone out there walking around. The school didn't have a fence, and that school, by the way, is just opposite Trogals. Have you ever heard of Trogals? No. Yes, just opposite the road which demarcates them. So people would walk around, go to the shops. There was no strictness in the school like you would find these days. I think because we're mature people studying in schools. So one of those guys came running and told us, members come. We went. He told us, members, what I'm about to tell you is going to, I don't know how you will take it. It's bad. I said, if somebody has touched you, let's go and beat this one up. We used to call ourselves the Three Musketeers. We were not easy. We thought we would beat anybody. And that's the first time actually to assert myself I was in that school. Before I was not that assertive. But after sitting at home and growing up a little bit, when I went to F3, I thought I was now man enough. And I got these other young men who were very rowdy, and they sort of sapped me into their system. We were very dangerous fellows that time. So we told him, if somebody has touched you, just tell us, we are going to kill him. He said, no, what I'm about to tell you is worse. We said, now what? What could be worse than that? Then he told us, members, do you know that history is for women? We said, what? It was a boys' school then. By the way, recently, I think 15 years ago, they mixed it now. They have killed our original tradition. So we said, we are men. Why are they teaching us a subject for women? We refused. We said, now we made a resolution. We are not going to attend history
classes.
From S3, first term 9, second term 9, third term 9. S4, 9. Second term mocks 9.
Were you not penalized by the teachers for not attending classes or something
They
like
never
that?
noticed. They never noticed.
They only categorized you among the worst
performance in history. So, but 3 weeks to examination. You know, you people have gone through examination times. Even the hardest of hearts. The examination time has a way of affecting you. You start to melt. Even the hardest of hearts starts to melt. So we started thinking, are we going to get 9s? So as we were thinking about it,
we are still in senior 3.
Yes, I know. We had now gone to S4.
Yeah, now we are in S4.
Yes. When a few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks to examination. That's when
that is your name.
Yes. That's when we woke up and said, now, members, what do we do? Actually, it is that same guy who had wrote the story who again came and called us. Members come. We would have the habit of standing on that side, then calling you. Then we went, we said, now what is it? He said, members, do you know what?
Yes. A resolution for now.
Yes, he asked us a question. Do you know we are going to fail history? We said, of course. Why do you ask? Then he said, members, what do we do? And this is true with all young men, especially S2 to S4. They have that habit of taking things for granted, starting to cut classes just because they have had a small story. So I'm appealing to people who are listening to us, the parents and the children. It's very dangerous. We almost failed. But thankfully for us, in that school there was a guy. You know, we were mature. But again, there are people we met in schools who were grandparents. Huge fellows.
Fathers.
Yes. There was this big one. And we gave him a name, Professor Were. He was huge. Our times, there were no visitations. These are recent. It is actually we people, after going through university and going into the working class and starting families, it's we who said now our children should not suffer like we did. We should visit them. But our times, our parents would just, even the first day going to school, they would stop a lorry. Those days were lorries in those villages, not taxis. They would stop a lorry and they put you there. They instructed the driver, please take that young man. Drop him at that school. Don't forget. Then when you're about to reach there, you sometimes even sleep on the lorry. They wake you up. Get up. Hey, go. That is the school. That's how I found myself in the schools. You would go alone. Visitation, they were not there. Parents would never come back for us. That would pick us from school. They would never even know that we were going to break off. You would just go back home. And they would get surprised.
Parents would just realize you're reaching home. They think they have a visitor.
Have you? You are back. Hey, holiday or what? We said we are broken off. Hey, so when are you going back? So that is how our parents were. So that is how we went through school.
What happened to history later when we are still with senior 4? Did you people find a resolution for that?
Yes. That Professor man who I've told you, he was a real man. It's not a joke, he was a real man. He had a wife and children. We realized, and he was the only one visited by his family. He had a wife and 3 children.
So the wife would always visit?
Yes, with the children, to see the guy. And we used to despise the guy. we would say now, this huge guy coming to study with us, small people. But the man saved our history. He's the man, is the one we visited. He was a very tough guy because he knew he was outside our age bracket. He used to walk alone, always annoying. If you were going that side and he was coming this way, you would just take off. You didn't know what to tell this guy, how to behave in front of him. So, but that day, we made a resolution. Members, we are going to fail history. What do? We said, let's visit Professor Wede. He knew no other subject except
history.
You get names, but ones in history. So we visited him. We formed into a bundle and we went and knocked at his door. He said, "Oh," we said, "we are the ones. What do you want?" He said, "We have a problem. What do you want?" I said, "We have a problem. We want you to summarize for us East African history and West African history." He did. He accepted. He actually smiled. For the first time we saw his smile. He was a history enthusiast. So he said, "Okay, let's go for supper." It was in the evening. Come back to the ant hill. Near our dome there was an ant hill. We told you those were our times. There was an ant hill near our dome. So we went, in a boys' only school. Meals, that was supper. Supper is eaten and completed within 5 minutes. In a boys' school, our times. First of all, you will get to hear the noise when they are pulling those trolleys carrying portion. You will hear that noise wherever you were. We knew that noise. It was characteristic. And we would just go and pick your plates from under the beds and run. Sometimes bare-chested. It was only boys' school. You would fly in, they slap a piece of portion on your plate and beans. You start eating from there. By the time you reach the dome, you are done. So in 5 minutes we are back. So we went to the ant hill with our notebooks. Professor told us East African history. He was giving us dashes, points, dashes, not sentences like in the history books, just points. Ngoni migration came, now it's the Luo points. The Arab conquest of the East African coast came, now it is Portuguese. He gave us a story about Uganda. We stopped him, we said, "Those are enough for us. Take us to West Africa." He said, "Now West Africa is the simplest. You know those kings, Askia Mohammed, Mansa Musa, Sairo Keita. There was one, there is another one. Those kings of West Africa." He said all those kings ruled in different kingdoms, but whatever each one did in their kingdom, the rest of them did exactly the same. You cram for one. So we said, "You give us Mansa Musa." We liked the name Mansa Musa. So he gave us the dashes. He said transatlantic trade came. It is now trans-Saharan trade. Wait. Said the Wolof Empire will come. Now it is Ashanti Empire. Either Wolof or Ashanti.
How long was it for you to do UNEP? When you got the points?
2 weeks to go. So he said the Wolof, these two empires have not been set for the last 3 years. Wolof or Ashanti. We said we didn't like the sound of Wolof. Give us Ashanti. He summarized for us Ashanti, and we went away. The days for exams, as you know, always come. Whether you like it or not, they will always come. So the day for history came. And you should have seen us after cramming the other dashes, walking to the main hall with the rest of the people.
You are now confident.
Very serious. The teachers were very proud of us. We went in.
How was the history teacher looking at you at that time? Wasn't he seeing an F9 in you?
No, we used to hide from him. Whenever we saw him, we would pass the other way. So we went into a main hall. Paper 1. You know, I don't know whether Yes, you know, up to now you are not supposed to touch the question papers until
you're told to do so.
So when they say now start, paper 1, the ruler was there. The first page I reached, all the points were done by the first, halfway the first page, all the points were done. The Portuguese conquest was there. Then the other half of that page went the other side. The story about Buganda was different. But how many stories have we heard from our grandparents about Buganda? We forged 1 or 2 points. In 12 minutes, paper 1 was done. But then when we looked at the paper, it was 2.5 hours. We said, what's wrong with these guys? We are done in 12 minutes and we are supposed to be here for the next 2 hours. 2 hours? Are they serious? What are we going to be doing? But then drama ensued. And the chief dramatist was Professor Were. In each of those questions, he was using 3 booklets. 1 full booklet. You know those booklets we use it.
So he was these students who would ask for another booklet, another booklet.
Another booklet. Paper 2. Trans-Saharan trade came, we gave the points. Ashanti came, they gave the points. Askia Mohammed was asked, we gave Mansa Musa's points. Again, in 15 minutes, we were done. Again, the professor used 3 booklets. The drama was, it was, you know, Were, it was called Were actually, that was his name. They were the ones seated at the end, those names, they were arranged alphabetically. We, the Sairos, were intermediate. The Weres, the Ziravas, the Zakes, those names. Those. So he didn't want the invigilators to waste his time. He would run from the end. Just run in that corridor. Pick the paper, run back. Again, run. And since we had completed the papers, we were watching a video. The man entertained us. And the paper 2 was the same story. So we went. As usual, we ended our papers, we finished our papers, we went back to our villages. Results came back. And you know they will always do. Have you ever heard of a year when results have never come back? They will always do. However much you wish they don't, they will always do. So we went back tiptoeing.
For the results?
For the results. When we reached the school, the first teacher we saw was the history teacher. And he told me, you man, you Sairo, now if you had attended my lessons throughout, I didn't know what he was talking about. So we went in. Our times, the schools had only 2 admins. Headmaster, deputy. Finished. Dorsey, Dini, these are recent. They are recent. So, and the deputy never had an office. He colonized the corner like that one in the staff room. That was his office. Incidentally, that is where he will release results to us.
So all teachers in the staff room have to notice who is getting the results?
As we went in, the teachers had known us. They said, those guys had they are very stubborn. Let's go and hear what they got. So you would stand, and the man reads like he's reading a death sentence. First of all, we would look, what is your name? I'm called Sairo. Sairo. Then we would get another piece. Oh, you said what is your name? I'm called Sairo. Sairo. Oh, okay. What? Sairo? Oh, okay. Then he started reading a death sentence. Very bad man. I don't want you people to know his name. He would start with the worst subjects. So when he said, literature 9, you would jump.
You knew how things
Sierra
looked good there.
You would jump. And the teachers were laughing. It was a nightmare. But thankfully, I had passed with the first grade. I got 18 points.
18 points. By that time, the points had come in.
Yes.
So how was your math? How was your mathematics?
Math was the one.
The best.
Yes, it
and
was the one.
Then the history.
In that school again, taught my class functions. I taught my class functions. If you bring functions any day, even if I'm deep asleep, I'll give you an answer.
So that
I
means
taught
after-
my, you know, that time, your parents will tell you that around the early 80s, teachers were being taken by Kenya. Kenya took a lot of our teachers, and the Manjasa High School is just a few kilometers from the border, about 5 kilometers from the border. So all our teachers had left, and we did not have many teachers in many of those subjects. Very few teachers.
So you were retained to teach your other
No,
subjects.
we taught ourselves. You know, I had joined the math club, and I was doing well there. I was teaching some of those people certain things. Now, in my class, I would go and give students, I would write a number, solve that one. If they failed, I would go up and split it for them. So we were, in O level, we were self-taught.
So that,
mainly.
that is how the teaching
Yes.
going to
I started
grow in you.
teaching long ago. Every holiday I would go back to the village. And my villagers, by the way, my dream was to become a space engineer, aircraft engineer. That was my dream. And the reason is that every time I was the first graduate from my Muruka, my Gomboro. First graduate.
I think you've heard a lot from Mr. Sairo. That is his senior 4, and we are seeing how the passion of teaching is growing in him. Let us wait for him in part 2. I think we shall enjoy more of his HSC, and then how he joined university, and then the teaching things, how he started teaching, and all the people he has groomed. We shall hear them. I think Honorable Bob Wine is one of them.
Yeah.
Let's see that in the next part.
Tulman, DJ Shim.
We are going to hear
All
those.
those guys
So,
were
Bebe
in our
Cool,
school.
Toolman, DJ Shield,
All
you
those
should be
guys
watching
were-
this. So,
they
please subscribe to our YouTube channel, SPassion
All those guys
TV, your
were in our
favorite.
school.
We shall
And
be seeing you
Enanga.
in the next part.
This is Nanga policeman. Alex Kawes. Alex Kawes, the late.
SPassion TV, your favorites.